Right, good morning. Good morning to members, officers, press and public attending this meeting of the Corporate Parenting Panel. My name is Councillor Stephen Rowe and I am the chairman for this panel. Councillor Andrew Haiggs, vice chairman of the panel, is also in attendance. In particular, I would like to warmly welcome Councillor Mrs Nicola Clark, who has joined the panel as a permanent replacement for Councillor Callum Clark. Welcome. Can I remind you that the audio-visual feed of this formal public meeting is being broadcast live via the County Council website, and with this in mind, I would like to welcome members of the public watching this live as the meeting is being streamed in the usual way. I'd like to remind you all that your comments will remain accessible online and can be reported by the media. I'd like to begin, I would like to go have a health and safety announcement. There is no fire drill planned this morning. In the event of the fire alarm sounding, we need to leave the council chamber through the rear doors and leave the building through the reception into the front car park. We then need to wait in the car park until further instructions. We've only had 2 in the last month, so probably relevant. Unfortunately, at the last one, we had the chief fire officer and the deputy chief fire officer in the meeting. So things went very well. Can I also remind you that mobiles, laptops and iPads should now be on silent mode for the duration of the meeting. If you wish to ask a question or make a statement in the course of the meeting, can you please raise your hand? Can I also remind members of the panel to switch on their microphones when invited to speak close to the microphone, and to switch their microphone off after you've made your contribution. Requests to speak will be collated by the Vice Chairman. Please can you keep your questions and contributions succinct and concise. So we now move on with the agenda. The first agenda item is apologies for absent. Emily, do we have any apologies, please?
Thank you, Chairman. We've received apologies from Anne Wright.
Thank you very much. Do any members wish to... Item 2, do any members wish to declare any interest that has not been declared previously in their pecuniary interest forms? Obviously, you can mention these as we go through if something strikes a chord. Item 3 is minutes of the meeting of the panel on the 7th of September 2023. This item is to confirm the minutes of our previous meeting, which can be found on pages 3 to 12 of the agenda pack as a correct record. I'm happy to propose them. Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Sear, thank you very much. We will now vote on the minutes. You're voting whether you agree that the minutes are a correct record. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And those against, and one abstention, 2 abstentions. Sorry, thank you. Thank you. Those minutes are agreed as a correct and accurate record. Item 4 is announcements by the chairman and lead officers. We have a long agenda this morning, therefore I'd like to ask officers to summarise the key points and keep their reports, let's try again. The key points of their reports to allow for more time for questions and debating. The only couple of things I've got to say is I attended what I call the big conversation, but now is V4C meeting, which I thought was well attended. There was some good contributions from there. Well worth going to. Also, as you're probably aware, Andy Morris and I have been going around district councils. We've got 2 more appointments now in the Boston area, and we've got another appointment for West Lindsey being arranged, which only leaves 1 more where we need to start action in before we've gone around all of them. So that's great news. Tara, do you have anything you wish to say? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just wanted to announce we're absolutely delighted that Paul Fisher, who you will know as the Team Manager Quality Standards, he's been appointed to the Corporate Parenting Manager role. And today we have present Kim Murray, who is now going to be the Team Manager Quality Standards, so will be a regular officer attendee at this meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. Andy, is anything? No, great, thanks. So we move on to item 5, which is the Independent Reviewing Service 6-month update report, 1st of April 2023 to 30th September 2023. This item is on pages 13 to 32 of the agenda pack and sets out the 6-monthly update on the work of Independent Reviewing Service for the period of 1st of April 2023 to 30th of September 2023. The report will be presented by Richard Stone, Team Manager Quality and Standards, Lead for Children in Care, and the panel is asked to review the 6-monthly update report on the Independent Reviewing Service and seek assurance that independent reviewing officers are fulfilling their duties and obligations in line with the statutory guidance set out in the IRO Handbook 2010, working within the Quality Standards Service framework to support the local authority to deliver good quality service, develop practice and promote outcomes for children in care. Richard, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Okay, I'll try and keep this succinct. You've all received the report and I will allow people opportunity at the end to ask questions should they wish to do so. But I just want to present to you all today some of the highlights from the report. In terms of who we are as a team, over the past 6 months we've been relatively stable. As reported in the last report, we had 4 new starters and I'm really pleased to announce that they're now embedded within the team and all actively working within their job role and progressing really well and promoting good outcomes for our children. We have had 3 further vacancies within the team during the last 6 months. These have all been appointed to, and we welcome 2 new starters over the next 2-month period. So effectively, we haven't carried any vacancies in the team as such. We still have 2 agency workers working alongside us to support the team while our new starters come along. Very positively, 2 out of the 3 people that are leaving the service have moved into other positions in the local authority, so we're really pleased to be able to retain their skills and talents in other areas, which, while it's very sad to leave them, we think that's a distinct positive for the local authority. In terms of the cohort of children we're working with, as you can see within the report, the children in care population has shown a very slight upward trend. That seems to have plateaued since COVID 3 years ago, but it's very, very slowly increasing. However, we are below many of our statistical neighbours. During the last 6 months, the independent reviewing officers have conducted a total of 891 review meetings, and that is slightly up on last year, and that just reflects in that very, very slight upward trend. Really, really pleased to announce that due to being very proactive and engaging with our children, we've only had 1 review that has been held out of timescales within the last 6 months. And that was for a genuine reason, and you'll see within the report that young person was in a very settled kinship placement, and actually there was no huge impact on that review being delayed by, I think, about 5 or 6 days. So we feel that's really positive as a service, that we are out there, we are engaging with the children, and actually their care plans are reviewed when they should be reviewed in a timely manner. There's been some challenges around the pre-COVID recovery with court proceedings. As you may well know, that the court are keen to return to the public law outline and concluding cases within the 26-week trajectory, and the local authority very much working with the court to get that back on track, because of course that means proceedings are swifter and that ultimately gives us a more timely outcome for our children, because we are keen for them to receive permanence at the first opportunity we can. During the last 6 months, we've actually had 451 reviews that have had to be rescheduled. Some of these are because children have changed foster placements, and there's a large proportion where IROs have actively brought those reviews forward in order to review care plans and make the really important decisions while supporting the court to keep within those guidelines. Again, we feel that's positive because it is really pushing to get those outcomes for children at the first opportunity we can for them. In terms of participation, again, you will see the way we participate with our children. It's really high, and the statistics are showing that. IROs are really creative because we are aware that not all children can present their verbal views at meetings. Some children don't want to present their verbal views at meetings. Some children have additional ways of communicating, so we're actively working with them, their advocates, their family, friends and safe people, to make sure that in the absence of a child telling us themselves, there's a range of ways that we can work with them to really understand what their life looks and feel like. And as you can see, our participation is relatively high again, and that's something we're really proud of. In terms of the challenges within the service, as you appreciate, the IROs are there to support the local authority, to make positive challenges where necessary, to make sure that children's care plans are on track. And if something needs resolving for a child, then the IRO will step in as a real strong advocate to do that. You'll see from the report that the number of formal escalations has lowered. That's not to say the IROs are not making those challenges where we feel they're necessary, but what we are doing is we're having more positive challenges. And by positive challenges, I mean we're using a restorative way to have direct conversations with our social work colleagues in order to understand what those care plans are looking like, in order to unpick some of those presenting issues and actually deal with them before they become something that they don't need to be, and we're keeping children's plans on tracks. So I guess in summary, the number of formal escalations has lowered somewhat, but the positive challenges are increasing to show that we're working in more of a restorative way to work with our colleagues and make sure that we are getting things right for our young people. Just to conclude with, in terms of some sort of forward actions, as you'll see within the report, value and care is very much still active and on the agenda and being embedded within the culture of children in care reviews. That's growing, and it's growing nicely. And what we're seeing is that when we're using the value and care tools to identify what children's needs are, IROs are really able to understand them and match that to their care plan. Where there's gaps in the provision for children, we're using that tool to understand what those gaps look like and what we need to do to make sure that we get the right support at the right timing for our children. And it's showing signs of having a really, really good impact on moving care plans forward for our children and indeed getting the right care plans for our children. You'll see within the report, most recently we held our first IRO and CAFCAS Joint Development Day, and this was the first in-person day since COVID. Really well attended. We opened it up this year to some social workers from our locality teams because we firmly believe that crucial to moving children's care plans forward and making right decisions. You have the IRO, the social worker and the guardian, and we feel it's really important that we all understand each other's perceptions, roles, and that we actively work together. That was a huge success. We've already got the event planned for next year, and I think after Christmas we're starting to actively plan that, and it is going to become an annual event. Chairs, individual chairs that have links to locality teams are going well, and I've been party to some quality audit roadshows with my colleague, and we've been talking to the locality teams, and the feedback is that where the locality link chair is talking to the locality teams, that's working well. They're able to understand what practice looks like in their area, highlight all the positive things, address some of the challenges and developmental opportunities we've got. So that's a model we're really keen to keep to because it bridges that gap and it enhances that communication. But lastly, I just really want to talk about the work with the young people. As mentioned in the past report, what we're doing is we're looking at the consultation documents, the way IROs engage with their young people and children. I attended the V4C event a couple of weeks ago now. Really fantastic. I think we had 19 young people there. Very verbal, very articulate, really pleased to tell me what they thought about their relationship with the IRO. That's something I want to hear. The result of that was we're going to form a little working group, and some of our young people have agreed to come forward and work with us to look at how we work with our children, the documents we give them before the reviews, making sure they're child-friendly and actually making sure we do what they want us to do and we're working with them in the right ways. And as part of that, I want to engage with our foster carer network as well, because IROs reach out to foster carers prior to reviews. And again, with the consultation materials, we want to get that right. They are some real strong advocates for our children in care. They're integral to the care they receive, and we want to close that loop to make sure that our foster carers, our young people, are fully involved and we're working with them the way we should work with them. So that was a really successful event. I'll be attending on a regular basis from now on, and we want to move that forward because actually, I think concluding our children's voices are really important. The last meeting told me that they want to be heard and they should be heard, and actually we've taken a lot from it already. That concludes my very short speech, probably short in my terms. If anybody's got any questions, I'm more than happily answer them now. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks, Richard. Any questions? It's going to be an easy ride.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Mrs. Clark.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for the report. As a new pair of eyes to these reports, actually it was really fulfilling and really interesting to read. So I'd ask for your indulgence because it's my first time. There'll be one or two things that I'm not aware of. But the questions that I actually wanted to ask you are, on page 17, on your update on priorities, analysis and development of procedures and IT support, it says you've got some way to go before your conference facilities around the county, the hybrid working equipment is available. Can you tell me what the delay is? Is it financial? Are we up to date? How much more have you got to do? And the other thing, if you'll just bear with me, is funding of the additional IRO post. How close are you to fulfilling that post, given the fact that you've had increased work pressure? If you could just answer that for me. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, of course. Okay, so firstly, in respect of the hybrid working equipment, it's a county-wide objective and it's not necessarily linked to the IROs, but we acknowledge we use the buildings quite a lot for meetings. Excuse me. The Smarter Working Group are looking at the moment. Many of our conference rooms have hybrid facilities and there's some ongoing work in terms of fine-tuning that to make sure that it's the right equipment in the right venues. What we have done as a stopgap, and you may not be aware of it because it was discussed in previous reports, all of the independent reviewing officers, who incidentally chair child protection conferences as well, given the dual role we have been issued with Logitech conference cams. So where the conference facilities in buildings are still developing, shall we say, the chairs have got the capacity to hold hybrid meetings, the audio quality is great, the video quality is great, and that's really enhancing the experience, and it allows us to have in-person meetings but also dial in partner colleagues and family members where appropriate. So that's working well for us, but in terms of the smarter working, that is a work in progress, but there's nothing that is stopping us having those meetings and being really creative around them. In respect of the funding for the IRO post, as you'll may be aware, we have some funding agreed to cover some of our unaccompanied children. That funding is ongoing at the moment, and we have actually appointed a temporary IRO within the service to that post. Now, when I say temporary IRO, we haven't necessarily appointed a specific IRO with that funding just to deal with the unaccompanied children. What we tend to do is we've got 2 or 3 IROs within the team that have a real expertise with working with our unaccompanied children. So in order to release some of their capacity, we're using that extra funding to have another IRO within the team. We have presently got the right number of people in the right number of positions within the team, and whilst we're very busy, we are being creative, and actually we're managing that, as you can see from the report, really well at the moment. I hope that's answered some of your questions.
Chair, could I just come back on something, just very briefly?
Yes, of course.
I won't keep you. You mentioned sickness absence appears to have lessened. I'm just interested to know, are the staff okay? I know it's a very stressful area to work in from past experience in another authority, so I do have some idea of that. Are the staff okay? And is it stress related? What steps are you taking really to make sure that staff are okay when they're doing the work, if they've been off poorly, etc.? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and that's a really valid question. I guess my initial position is, yes, we feel the staff are okay. It is a busy job. It can be stressful at times, as all social workers are. I think what we had before, when the sickness absence was slightly higher, we'd got a number of members in the team that had planned sickness, such as operations, and that accounted for some of our high levels of sickness. We haven't got staff regularly going off with stress. We have some really good support mechanisms in place. So as you'll see within the report, staff receive supervision on a monthly basis, and we talk about their children, but we also talk about them as people, as individuals, and how they're feeling and navigating their way through work. Each member of staff has a manager, and they are available all day, every day in between meetings. So we reach out to staff, and they come to us frequently for conversations, because we firmly believe that we don't want to wait 4 weeks down the line to supervision. If something's bothering you now, then let's talk about it right now and try and resolve that. Staff support is really good. Peer support is really good. The team all talk to each other. We have chat facilities on Teams where people can just drop questions in, so nobody's left, don't want to use the word struggling, but no one's left for very long if they've got something that they want answering or want something they want support with necessarily. So that's all in place. And we also have regular peer supervision each month where groups of people come together to talk about how they're feeling, they reflect on practice, and we think we've got really, really good support mechanisms in place. We work quite flexibly, and some of our staff are working flexible hours, so they might do 9 days over a fortnight, and that's actually enhancing their way of working because they're getting that additional regular time out of work. And as a service, we like to be family friendly and flexible. So, for instance, a chair may chair a child in need meeting at 5 o'clock at night because that particular young child doesn't want to take it place in school hours, and they might finish late, but then they might come in late the next morning and start at 10 o'clock, or they might take a couple of hours out in the day and get that time back. So we very much have the mantra of we're here to look after our young people and their parents and serve them, and we must do that absolutely 100%, but the people we employ are also people and they have families, and if we can be flexible around some of that sometimes to make that work for everybody's advantage and the job gets done effectively and everyone gets their needs back, then we're very keen to promote that. But I think we have a really good culture within the team, and I'm pretty sure if you asked our staff, they would come back and say that too. So I hope that answers some of your questions and lies some of your worries around that. Thank you.
Councillor Whittington.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. What's one question that I sort of tend to always ask, sort of in the sort of post-COVID world, around the sort of courts and the delays with the courts, and I know that obviously the courts have been, trying to reduce the backlog of cases, because obviously from a child perspective, they kind of need to have that certainty, that their case is going to be sorted. Because I certainly know when we were going through the adoption process with our child, that sort of final court date was very important because it sort of marked the end of the process. So well, I also appreciate the courts are getting back to normal, but you kind of read through the report that it's having an impact on your workload. So I just want a little bit of kind of an update on how that's going with the process with the courts. And secondly, I picked up on the fact that in terms of having the independent chairs, there are vacancies, and again there's pressures on the workload. So just a little bit of an update on that, and I think thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. I'll take the question in relation to the court delays. What I'd like to say is there's been a tremendous amount of work collectively with the judiciary, with CAFCAS and our social workers. We're absolutely committed to getting back on track to the 26 weeks. It's an issue that's national. However, I'm pleased to say that a number of the legacy cases from COVID have now made their way through the system. We have reduced the weeks, and we're on track to be hitting the 26 weeks. And that's around the commitment from the judiciary working with us and working with CAFCAS. It's an improving picture month on month, which we're really, really pleased about. So that means there are minimal delays. We try and stick to 3 court hearings. We've got very clear timelines that social workers are aware of, the children's guardians are aware of, and the court are very mindful that we stick to those timelines to keep within the 26 weeks. It is a much better picture.
And if I could just come in and pick up that last question around the vacancies, and I may have not been explicit when I made my little presentation earlier, but we do have 2 vacancies in the team. We have appointed to them, and we're due one person starting at the end of November, and we anticipate the second person to start in January. What we have got at the moment is 2 agency workers that have been with us quite a long period of time, so they've got some real sustained relationships with their children and young people. We are keeping those agency workers, so as our new members of staff come in, they'll be fully inducted, familiarise themselves with the role, and they will take over them children, and the agency workers will then exit our service. So as I sort of said before, we have got the right number of people in the service, so we're not struggling with the deficit of staff to deal with the work we have to do, so to speak, if that puts some clarity around that for you, Councillor Whittington.
Thank you. That's going to be
You're
reassuring.
very welcome.
Because again, certainly one thing, being through the process and having adopted a child, the children do get attached to social workers and to all the people involved in their cases, and so I'm pleased. So hopefully as part of that managed process, the child will be involved, saying, we're now moving from this person over to that person, because it's important for them, I think, to understand the process.
Yeah, we very much manage that. I'll just make one small comment which hopefully will sort of give you some comfort. We do very much consider, we have a dual role, so we deal with children on child protection plans and children in care. However, the children in care have a lot more involvement with their independent reviewing office, and what we tend to do is to make sure that our children in care are sitting with predominantly our full-time members of staff, and our agency workers are dealing more with the families under child protection, so that mitigates some of that. And I guess really my closing gambit would be, when I was at VC, I asked the question to the children. It was really comforting for them to come back and tell me who their IRO was, and just tell them one or two little interesting things about them, so we can see we're getting it right and they have got a relationship with that person, which is just fantastic for us. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any further questions? Right, just a couple, not quite as easy as we thought it was going to be, Richard, but just a couple of bits from me. You mentioned the unaccompanied asylum-seeking children, that there's been 27 within, was it the last 6 months, and that the majority of those are in specialist care. I'm interested in understanding what specialist care is, and I'm also interested in the number that are actually in Lincolnshire. And I have a weird question as a Lincolnshire person to ask. Normally we say that getting these people back into cared for children back into Lincolnshire is to their advantage. In this case, do we have the specialisms required for those children to be in Lincolnshire, and how many are in Lincolnshire? Does that all make sense?
It does, and maybe Andy Morris might be able to come in and answer a couple of these things, but I just want to firstly say, when we say specialist care, what we've got to remember is unaccompanied children are still children, and all children deserve and access the right level of care. And the view of the independent reviewing service is, yes, they may be unaccompanied, but actually all children have rights, and we treat them all equally. Because they have different circumstances and situations to how they came to live and reside within the UK, we have one or two independent reviewing officers who are quite expert in that area. They understand the processes around unaccompanied children, what their journey looks like, and we try to make sure that those independent reviewing officers review those children's care plans, because actually they do that on a daily basis and they build that specialism, so they're more adept to that role. I'm going to just hand over to Andy in respect of the sort of residency and coming to Lincolnshire, because he's probably more informed than me on this at the moment.
Just before you start, if I might.
Of course, yes.
If I remember rightly, there's 3 specialists working for us. Do those 3 specialists also work with the unaccompanied children who are in Lincolnshire, as well as the ones outside of Lincolnshire?
Okay, so when we say specialists, I'm thinking independent reviewing officers who have more knowledge and understanding of the unaccompanied children than their colleagues, because they deal with them on a day-to-day basis. Many of our children are placed within and outside of Lincolnshire, and within the report we have specialist placements in Peterborough and Derby, etc. It doesn't matter if an unaccompanied child resides in Derby or Peterborough. If they're the responsibility of Lincolnshire, then my independent reviewing officers will travel to Peterborough or Derby, and they will review their care plans, and they will work with them outside of our county. So that service is continual across all our cohort of unaccompanied children. Does that bring any more clarity? Or
no.
Not. Okay,
I understand
let's
what you're
carry
saying.
on.
Yeah, you mentioned we have 3 officers, 3 independent people who work well, or specialists working with these unaccompanied children. What I'm saying is, if we do have some in Lincolnshire, do those 3 people work with those children in Lincolnshire as well as the ones outside of Lincolnshire?
Yes. So, for instance, just for the point of clarity, if an independent reviewing officer has, say, 50 unaccompanied children, 30 live within Lincolnshire, 20 live outside of Lincolnshire in our specialist placements. They will work with all those children equally. Is that clearer for
That's
you?
it. That's great.
Fantastic. Thank you,
Thanks.
Councillor Rowe.
Yeah. Thank you, Andy.
Yeah, it's just say, okay, when it comes to our unaccompanied young people, as I think we've discussed it a couple of times, the majority of unaccompanied young people are 15, 16, 17 years old. So the vast majority of our young people are 16, 17 years old, and they live in registered, regulated, supported living options in Peterborough, Derby and Nottingham. We've got 3 providers we work really closely with that offer supported living options to them. In terms of moving back into Lincolnshire, we've tried to find providers in Lincolnshire to offer that kind of supported living for that group of young people. We didn't have many providers come forward, but what we are working with is our colleagues in NACRO around supporting those young people as they get towards 18 years old and they've finished living in our supported living option in Peterborough, Derby or Nottinghamshire, coming back into Lincolnshire so they can access the services closer to Lincolnshire where they've got local housing connection, etc. once their status is agreed by the Home Office. And that's how we're bringing our young people back into Lincolnshire. And it seems to be working quite well. The vast majority of young people either settle in the area where they were living in Peterborough, Nottingham or Derby, or if they don't, then they can come back to Lincolnshire where we've got resources closer to hand.
Okay, thank you both very much. That concludes this discussion. I propose that the panel has reviewed the 6-monthly update report on the Independent Reviewing Service and has been assured that independent reviewing officers are fulfilling their duties and obligations in line with statutory guidance set out in the IRO Handbook 2010, working within the quality and standard service framework to support the local authority to deliver good quality services, develop practice and promote good outcomes for children in care. Can I ask you to raise your hands if you are in agreement? Okay, yeah, that's everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you, Richard. So we now move on to agenda item 6, which is the Regulation 44 Independent Visitors Report. This item on pages 33 to 62 of the agenda pack sets out the 6-monthly report on the Regulation 44 Independent Visiting Service and the work undertaken between April and October 2023. The report will be presented by Carolyn Knight, Head of Service, Quality and Standards and Principal Social Worker. The panel is requested to consider the 6-monthly report on the Regulation 44 Independent Visiting Service and seek assurance that the independent visitors are fulfilling their obligations in visiting the local authority homes each month as required and inspecting against the 9 quality standards as outlined in Part 6 Regulation 43 of the Children's Homes Regulation 2015. So I now hand over to Carolyn. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So, as the Chair's very eloquently put, I'm here to talk to you about Reg 44, visiting service this morning. The local authority has a duty to appoint an independent visitor for every local authority residential children's home that we have in Lincolnshire. So at the minute there's 8 local authority homes that we manage and we run, and we have also 2 semi-independent homes that aren't subject to the same statutory requirements, but we do inspect them on a slightly reduced level because that's good practice to do so, really. But the report today really focuses on the 8 Main Street local authority homes that we've got. So over the last 6 months, you'll see from the report that we've had 4 independent visitors who've been sharing the visits to the homes. We also have a separate visitor who does the semi-independent ones. As part of the visit, so they visit every month, some are announced, some are unannounced, various times of the day, might be early in the day, might be the evening. We try to make sure when they go, they do see the young people, because we need to speak to the young people, get their views, but also see how they are, what the relationships are like with the staff within the homes. So a lot of the visits are unannounced. We also seek, so part of that, we do always see some of the young people that are in the homes, and we get feedback directly from the young people. But as well as getting feedback from the young people, we'll often contact parents. Sometimes I think there's reference in the report to a Reg 44 officer meeting a parent at the secure unit. But if there aren't parents actually there actively visiting the young people, we do contact the parents outside to seek their views on how they think the home is looking after the child and what their relationship is like as well. We also seek feedback from social workers, other professionals such as health visitors, youth offending workers, any sort of other professionals that might be visiting the home or the young person on a regular basis. There has been some turnover in terms of home managers, many on a positive note really. A lot of them have gone on to be and got promoted, which, you know, causes an issue in itself. But it's good news for those staff that have got promoted. But I'm pleased to say recruitment's happened and we've been successful in filling those vacancies, and staff are coming into post as we speak. As you'll see from the report, the voice of the child is really, really key. And it's a priority for all the homes, and there's a variety of ways detailed in the report as to how young people's voices are heard and collated and responded to. We also commission Voiceability, which is a commissioned advocacy charity. They have an advocate allocated to every home and they visit every month as well. And their contact details are always visible and available in the home, so any young person in the residential homes can make contact with the advocate if they don't want to necessarily speak to them on the day when they visit, but that is promoted with all young people. And as you'll also know, we have nominated elected members, and I think some of you will have been visiting these homes recently, but there are a few of the homes that haven't had any visits from any members in the last 6 months, so that might be something we might need to pick up outside of this meeting. In relation to the quality of care in the homes, the 3 of them have had inspections in the last 6 months. You'll see the details in the report. As you can see, it's been a bit of a challenging time for North Home, but it's fair to say that staff are really resolute, have taken on board concerns that were raised and are working really, really hard to resolve these. Some of the concerns were because a number of young people had moved on within a short space of time, and there'd been about 4 young people move in fairly close together, and I think there was just a bit of vying between the young people, working out who was going to be top dog, and it needed a bit of time to settle the relationships down. Really great news to bring you about Albion Street, who had their inspection and got outstanding, which, if you remember back to previous Reg 44 reports, they've had quite a challenging time in recent years, but so it's really credit to the staff that they've achieved outstanding, well deserved really. And the safeguarding unit, sorry, slip of the tongue. Secure unit has also had an inspection and continues to be good. The other news in the report is that Robin House opened in September and 2 children have moved in. They've not had an inspection yet, but because it's very early days, so hopefully we'll be able to report on that in the next report. Again, in the report, family time, really important focus. All the homes really promote these young people having family time with family members, extended family members, friends, past foster carers, anybody who's had significant relationships with these young people, because we're well aware that these young people will choose to move out, if not before 18, at 18. And I know there's initiatives that Andy oversees around staying close and staying put if you're in foster care. But for some of these young people, they will gravitate back home. So managing that family time and promoting that and improving those relationships is really key. And it's pleasing to see that that is a priority across all the homes. In relation to education, it remains a priority in the homes, and the homes are really proactive in ensuring young people receive and engage with education. And the virtual school are really supportive as well in making sure that any issues around education are addressed and the staff and the homes and the children well supported. Staff continue to access training, it's Freudian slip because I manage safeguarding. The secure unit are just transitioning to a new restraint technique, and there's quite a lot of staff in the secure unit, so it's been a bit of a challenge to make sure that all the staff are trained over a 2-week period to then be able to move to use the new method of restraint. Recruitment and retention remains a challenge in the home, in all the homes to be fair, but we have over recent months done quite a lot of work in relation to this. So for example, we've made sure that when we go out to recruitment it's coordinated quite well, so when you look on our website we haven't got lots and lots of jobs and vacancies listed. There will be collated under the homes, just to make it look like there's slightly less. And it's done in a collated way, so if we're interviewing for one home, they may be appointable and able to work across another home. So there's been a lot of work done around that. We've been promoting residential at like career fairs. We've started reaching out to things like sixth forms because we want to make sure that we promote careers in social care and children's services as something early on before people make their choices around which degree courses they might want to study, and also reaching out to universities to try and get people to come and have placements with us or do relief work for us part-time while they're at university to try and generate that interest but also fill some of our relief posts. So we've done quite a lot of work. That's work ongoing, but I think the last recruitment campaign for residential was really successful and there were quite a lot of applicants for that. So overall, there's, as you'll see in the report, there is evidence of really high quality care being offered to our children in Lincolnshire. There's really good relationships between staff and children, and really good progress is being made to date. And that concludes the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I ask for questions, I did note the visiting members part. We currently have 3 new, or relatively new visiting members, and I've emailed them all asking that we can get appointments set up by the end of January, and I personally will commit, if we have difficulties with any of those, to doing the ones that that are free myself, but I'm happy to talk to you about where we're at out of here. Yeah.
Sorry, if you need any support to get the people linked in to who they need to contact, that's fine. That'd
Okay,
be really
thanks.
good. Thank you.
Councillor Whittington.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, and thanks for the report, Karen. Just a couple of things. I mean, I used to be the visiting member at the Beacon in Grantham, and obviously I'm very much aware that the children and young people there do have really special needs. You know, they're quite specific. And I do know that when I went there, one of the things that does cause it problems for some of them is change. And obviously I see that obviously there's been sort of almost a replacement of the senior managers there. But on the positive side, obviously the Ofsted report is still good, which is great. So just a little bit of an update around how the recruitment to the that's going. I see that there's going to be new members of staff starting, but I'm really looking at it, probably related to the question I asked earlier about how you introduce the new team, as it were, to the children, because obviously it's about change and what's going on around them. And the second one is around the North Home and the Action Plan. And just to sort of, if you could just give a bit of an update into, because I'm guessing there's an action plan in place to sort out some of the difficulties. If you can just sort of give an update on timelines, I think that'd be quite useful. Thank you.
I think Tara's best place to answer this one.
Yeah, thank you. No, really good questions. So, just in terms of the backdrop, so recruitment to the residential estate is a national issue, and it's been highlighting the stable homes built on love, the social care reforms. What the reforms are saying, they really want to professionalise residential care. They want to look at the leadership element. They also want to look at the quality standards for residential. I absolutely welcome it because it is a very difficult role, but those residential care workers that are in post are so passionate and so committed to the children in their care. And we're really fortunate in Lincolnshire to have a great, talented team of residential care workers. We offer superb training, succession planning and wraparound therapeutic support as well. In relation to the Beacon, that was a real one-off unfortunate situation where the leadership team either got a post elsewhere or changed a career outlook. And that came about altogether, so that was really difficult for the staff group. However, we had a member of staff that was taking on additional assistant manager posts, and he's stayed there all of this time. And the recruitment to those managers' posts is looking really good and positive. The rest of the staff team is very stable, but also we have a residential service lead, and that is Maria Cowan. And Maria Cowan is that consistent management figure across all of the homes. So Maria has been very much based at the Beacon. It's a real testament that the care of those children is at that high standard, even despite the change. In relation to a new manager coming to any home, there is a process where the current registered manager has to give notice to Ofsted that they are leaving the home because they are connected to the home in respect to the Ofsted registration. And so we have time to then bring in the new manager alongside the current homes manager through that induction period. And for example, at Albion Street, the manager got a promotion, really well deserved promotion, and the assistant manager has been successful in getting the homes manager for the new home being opened at Louth Riverhead House. However, she's been able to manage both and stay at Albion Street to support the new manager who's starting, I think, December.
Right, thank you. Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got an apology, Carolyn, and a question, followed by a question. My apology is that I'm the visiting councillor for Eastgate Sleaford, and I've neglected my duties for some time. I apologise to everybody, and I will be making changes to that in the next few weeks. So that's the apology. The question I've got is, when I have been to Eastgate, I've occasionally met parents and family that are there meeting the children, but I've never seen any friends for the children there, school friends or whatever. So I wonder what's, and I realise that must cause a certain amount of problems having children coming in from outside. But I wonder, do we encourage that to happen? And does it happen very frequently? Thank you.
That's a really good question. We really do positively work in terms of children forming, maintaining those really, really important friendships. And we encourage that both in terms of being able to visit friends, go to friends' parties, as any of our children would do. And we replicate that in each of the homes. Of course, it has to be managed because, you know, it is a group living situation and the homes really do manage that well. There's a real high focus on relationships at every level, whether that's a friend, whether that's with family time, with extended family, all those other significant adults in that child's life. It might be a really good question for you when you next visit Councillor Haig's, to get that from the unit manager there as well. But it is something we are absolutely mindful of and promote, you know, within and outside the home.
Councillor Matthews.
Yes, thank you for the report. And I might be something I don't understand. Number of child in care reviews per month, 2023. Something happened in April because you dropped to 122. We then have a very pretty bar chart beneath that. And then we have another table that says rearranged child in care reviews. And the rearranged child in care reviews in April was 70, which is more than 50% of the child in care reviews. Is the total the child in care reviews plus the rearranged child in care reviews, or what is going on here? Because that's not the only anomaly. The rearranged ones are running at about 50% of the stated child in care reviews. So did the child in care reviews take place, as in the table, or did the rearranged ones take place? And it's just a numerical anomaly, and it just appeals to me, and I might be completely asking a stupid question.
No such thing as a stupid question. Can you just point me in which... You're going back to the IRO report, I guess,
Yeah,
here, aren't
sorry,
you?
I am.
What page?
27.
I think numbers drop in April because it's Easter, and a lot of our young people are school age, and then the school holidays have 2 weeks off. So wherever Easter falls, and similar with summer holidays, there's always a bit of a drop, because to make the meetings and the reviews effective, we want as many professionals that are involved with the children to be there as possible. So numbers will have dropped over Easter. That might also account for some of the rearrangements if they were due, because we book 6 months in advance. But I know Richard's found the report. Can you not turn yours on?
That's a good system. Okay, so, yeah, when you look at the report, our apologies for that. It can be quite complicated to understand, but essentially what we're looking at is, for each of the months that are identified within the report, that is so the number of child and care reviews per month is the actual number of reviews that have taken place in that month. So if you look at your chart, you can see in April, there's 122. And I'd confer with Carolyn that actually there's peak times in year. So you'll see in July, there's 178. And I'm thinking that's because we've got the summer holidays approaching and schools aren't around. So we want to get those reviews in before the school holidays. And likewise, when you've got the Easter holidays during April, the reviews might be slightly lower. But you can see in March, there are 164, and in May, there are 175. So we've dispersed them reviews around school holidays because actually, one, it's really important we get schools to meetings, but more importantly, it's that child's meeting. And two, we don't really want to be having reviews in the holidays because that's the times when kids just want to break and maybe go off and do things with their families and carers. So looking at the number of rearranged reviews, that is a separate figure. So the number of reviews that actually took place is a number of review meetings that took place. The number of reviews that were rearranged, you can see per month, are where we've had to change the date of a review. And it may well be that that figure in April is quite high at 70, but actually have we moved some of those reviews around? And as we highlighted in the report before, you know, we are working very closely with the judiciary in terms of the post-COVID recovery. We are trying to really be timely with concluding care proceedings and seeking permanence for our children. On occasions, that does mean that actually we have to bring reviews forward, or we might have to rearrange a review in a timely way so the IRO can ratify that plan and make sure it's the right plan for that child before the evidence is filed in court. So there has been quite a number of rearranged reviews. I think just outshining that, you can see that, despite all that going on, and we are being active in rearranging reviews, and we have had a lot of reviews, we've only actually had one review out of timescale. So the IROs are working really, really hard to nail that. But in essence, number of reviews that took place per month is the actual number of reviews that took place, and the number of rearranged reviews are the amount of reviews that were rearranged. I appreciate that figure can get quite complicated, but it is quite complicated dynamics at times. If a children moves into a new foster placement suddenly and it's not part of a planned care plan, then of course the IRO will want to review that and get back round the table to make sure that that's the right plan for that child and we've got the right trajectory set in place for them. Is that helpful for you, Councillor Matthews?
It is, because it clarifies the point of the first table, and I'm sorry for bringing it up now, but it's taken me a little while to process this. The second table is almost unnecessary. To me, that's backroom stuff that involves you shifting your diaries, and I wonder why it's in there. But there's a massive number of rearrangements on these formal reviews. Does it mean that it was arranged and then cancelled at short notice, so wasting time, and then rearranged for the next month or the next week? I'm just wondering what this is telling us about our engagement with these young people. Are they resisting taking part in reviews or their families or their carers, or are we just not very good at booking meetings and understanding how important they are?
Okay.
So I don't understand why the second table is in there, other than justifying the time spent on securing the time in the first table. But as a former field operative, you get cancellations all the time. But if I'd been reporting my cancellations, my rearrangements, it's a meaningless table to me, and I wonder why it's in there, basically.
Okay, so, and I know Tara probably wants to comment, in terms of are we unnecessarily just rearranging reviews last minute? Within the IRO world, nothing is unnecessary and everything is child considered. And as we said, it may well be that actually we're in proceedings and all of a sudden the court trajectory has changed, or the local authority have got a revised time scale and we have to change that meeting. We will do that because it's really important the IRO gets around the table and has a good look at that child's plan before it goes to court, to make sure that as their advocate and their strong advocate, it is the right child for that, the right plan for that child, and it is the most realistic plan for that child. That does at the moment unfortunately cause a lot of rearranged reviews. What we do is we always consider the impact of the child and the family. Reviews are seldom cancelled last minute. If we have to rearrange a review for a child, it will be in consultation with the child. Of course, if they're old enough to make that consideration. What we find in a lot of our proceedings, though, it is the younger children and a lot of sort of babies at the moment where there's not such an impact on the child, but of course we consider the parents. So we do absolutely avoid rearranging reviews per se for the sake of rearranging reviews, but where it is necessary and there's value for the IRO to say let's rearrange and bring this review forward, and it is being brought forward when they're rearranged. Very seldom are they extended beyond timescales, because we don't go out of timescales, because actually kids need their plans reviewing, and that's our bottom line. We're not prepared to accept anything drifting for our children because we want to secure those really good outcomes. I take on board your comment in respect of why is that actually within the report, and I will have a conversation about that, Councillor Matthews, but actually from a service level perspective, I think the aim is to sort of identify actually there are some pressures within the service. We do have this number of reviews that are rearranged, but actually we are really active in working around to achieve that. But it does highlight that it is something the IROs have to work with. But I will certainly take on board your comments in respect of that and look at that for the report next time. Is that helpful? Because I know Tara would, I think, like to say something as well.
It is. And my obviously next question is, why haven't we got a table that says rearrange twice and rearrange 3 times? Because again, having been a field operator, I know it's not simply that. And so I would like to know why it's in there, and then how far we could go in putting this, we wasted this time on rearrangements, because it's not good use of your time.
Okay, it isn't good use of our time from a practical point of view, but actually it's really good use of our time if we have to rearrange reviews sooner to make sure that we're nailing the right outcome for children. And I'm not going to make excuses for that, because we need to make sure that they are the right care plans for those children. I will look at those figures just very briefly before I hand over to Carolyn in respect of Is it rearranged once, twice, 3 times? I guess my answer would be no. If it's rearranged and it takes place. There are occasions where within the IRO handbook we have what we call a series of short meetings, and that may well be we start a meeting and then we conclude within 28 days, but ordinarily they are exceptional circumstances. So I will give you an example. A colleague of mine came to me and said, I want to hold a review as a series of short meetings, and the reason was the child requested that the review takes place at their home, but they was actually in school or something on the day the review was booked. So what the independent reviewing officer did was to start the meeting and have a discussion with some of the professionals, and then concluded the meeting about 3 weeks later in the child's home, so the child could be present where they wanted it to be. It was one review, it was just set over a couple of meetings, but we don't rearrange for the sake of it. There is a reason why we arrange, and that is predominantly to make sure we get the right outcomes for our kids and we look at their care plans at the right time for them. I'm going to hand over to Caroline now, but I hope my comments have been helpful for you.
I only wanted to add one comment, which probably does contribute to the rearrangement, and it's really because we are really keen to make sure that there are quite a number of children that we have to make sure we've got reviews booked in. We do set a date at the last meeting, so it could be the date is not, if they're settled in a permanent placement, the review won't be due for 6 months, so we'll set a review date 6 months hence. But quite a bit can change with carers availability, schools availability, social workers having to go to court. So whilst we do try to adhere to the set date, occasionally there are times when, as Richard's alluded to, we need to rearrange. My worry is if we didn't book it at the next review, then professionals and carers are really busy people, and it'd be then hard to try and find dates to put in. So it's better to have something in the calendar in advance that we all accept might need to be moved nearer the time, but then not and try and book it like a week before or a few weeks before, which would cause even more mayhem really, and they wouldn't be as well attended. And to be fair, all the professionals and carers in Lincolnshire do really commit to attending reviews because they are a priority. And I think Polly wants to make a comment, and then we'll get back to Tara.
Yeah, I do attend the reviews 6 monthly for my children, but I think they're often changed if it's about the professionals attending. You know, I've had one recently changed because we wanted to make sure the school was there as well. So it's, you know, it is hard because different timetables after 6 months and things, you know, or people are off ill and things. But the one thing I can say is the children are always put first, but they're always done in time scale. So
I'm truly sorry for setting a hair running. If 1,000 children require an annual review or a 6-month review, then there should be 1,000 or 2,000 reviews in a year. And we don't need to know about the rearranged reviews and the operational process. And I'll repeat my point, which I think you've answered. I simply don't understand why it's in there. And you haven't given me a good reason that justifies why it's in there, other than saying, look, operational practice, we couldn't do this on time. What I would be truly interested in is knowing if there were 990 meetings where there should have been 1,000, or if there were 1,040 where there should have been 1,000. And I'm not sure if that's quite picked up in that. And interestingly, I'm not sure if I want to know about the last 20 years either. So it's a really interesting use of data when we're looking at this quarter, but we've got the last 10 years. So I just wonder if you could have a look at that, because you might find better things to do with your time. Thank you.
Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you talked about the voice of the child and voiceability. Could you just, this will probably be really difficult to generalise, but could you just give me more detail about how a child and a parent, obviously if they're in a home, how they gradually come back together, or not necessarily come back together, but build a new relationship? How does that actually work?
do my best to answer that one. So when a child comes into care and is placed in a residential home, usually they're on either have gone through a court process and they're on a care order, or it could be a voluntary agreement with that parent. Either way, a parent maintains their parental responsibility. So as a local authority, we have a duty to keep that parent involved in every decision about that child. We have a process whereby they can delegate, we can agree delegated responsibility. So things like who can decide if the child has a haircut, for example. There's an agreement at planning meetings. So parents still remain involved throughout the journey because they've got this parental responsibility for the child, and we have a duty to work with them. We share parental responsibility with them. So they will always be invited to placement meetings, planning meetings, care planning meetings. They should be invited to school, parents' evening, that's the word I was looking for, parents' evening. There will always be a plan about how contact will be maintained, or family time as it's referred to. That will vary from child to child depending on the relationships, the risks that parent may present, the reasons they've come into care, but every child has a care plan, and family time is crucial in that. Because, as I said, I think earlier on, what we know is a lot of these young people gravitate home later on, when they're sort of teenagers, certainly 16, 18, long after they've left care and they've gone through leaving care services. Family are always going to be there for them. And we've recently agreed a strategy around reunification, so making sure that we actively work with these parents when children come into care to try and give them the support they need to potentially change their parenting or address whatever the reason that these children came into care. So we can then proactively keep reassessing where the parents are at and look at whether there's any chance of reunification. And at every review, there should be consideration given to reunification. It might not necessarily be discussed in the meeting in front of the young person, because that might not always be appropriate, but the IRO should have a mind to it and should be considering reunification. Does that answer your question? So it is child specific, really, but it is a priority.
Thank you. That does answer my question. So as reunification becomes nearer, sorry, I don't know whether that's good English. What I'm trying to get in my head is, obviously, depending on the situation between parent and child, you may not be able to, well, you probably won't be able to leave a parent with a child. So how is that sort of, what then happens as reunification, is becoming more, a realisation?
Okay, I think it's part of the care plan and it's about risk assessing. So it depends on age of the child, what the circumstances are, what the risk the parent presents. So you might start off with supervised contact. So for children who are not in residential care and might be in foster care, they may go to our family centres where there are the family time team who supervise contact. That'll be part of the plan. Sometimes foster carers will supervise contact. Some even have parents going to the home. Residential homes, the staff tend to manage the contact themselves, either by the parent going to the home or the residential staff taking the child to meet the parents. It changes over time because, what might be risky for a young baby or a young toddler will be very different for a teenager who is more able to, make a call for help, move themselves out of a dangerous situation. So it does vary. It changes over time. The family time team if there is supervised contact, there will be work done by the family time service and by the social worker to try and address the parents' issues, which is the plan of the reunification strategy, to just make sure we're doing that a bit more robustly than sometimes we perhaps have done in the past. So it evolves over time, and hopefully the aim is by the time they're sort of into their teens, that it could be unsupervised. Do you want to come in, Tara?
Tara,
I
do you
can
want
see
to?
Tara.
Yes, please. I think it might be really helpful if we revisit in terms of like a brief awareness or training session around the journey of the child, so either through care proceedings, placements, or through the voluntary section 20, and also to talk about what we've done in terms of trajectory planning for potential reunification. Is quite a complex subject and probably needs the time and effort to kind of go through it in more detail.
Yeah, sounds good. Because I mean, but basically what we've got here is a independent visitors report, but Carolyn's actually going way past the report into the detail that's actually probably not her, but fortunately she's got the knowledge of it. So yes, Tara, I think that will make sense. Do we have any other questions? And I recognise my last question is not actually a visitor report one. It's about how you deal with something within it. But I will talk to Tara later about that. Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much. That concludes this discussion. I propose that the panel has reviewed the 6-monthly report on the Regulation 44 Independent Visiting Service and has been assured that the independent visitors are fulfilling their obligations in visiting the local authority homes each month as required and inspecting against the 9 quality standards as outlined in Part 6, Regulation 43 of the Children's Homes Regulations. Can I ask you to raise your hands if you're in agreement, please? Yeah, that's unanimous. And just say thank you, Carolyn, for the depth, and Richard, for the depth that you both went into on that. Super, thank you. So next is 7, which is the Fostering Quarterly Performance Report, quarters 1 and 2. This item on page 63 to 86 of the agenda pack provides the panel with an overview of the fostering service performance for quarter 1 and 2, covering the period from April to September 2023. The report will be presented by Emily McAllister, Fostering Team Manager. The panel is invited to review and comment on the contents of this report and that the attached report be accepted as an accurate overview of the fostering service. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you very much. So this year started with the very welcome increase in the fostering allowance, which was a 12% increase, which ensured that Lincolnshire's allowances remained above the government recommended minimum allowances. As highlighted in the report, this increase is critical for the carer retention, which must be considered in the face of a national decline, unfortunately, in the number of carers ceasing to foster. While fostering allowances are of course important, they form one part of Lincolnshire's wider support offer to carers, which includes high quality, regular supervision and when needed additional bespoke support from our placement support workers. Our support offer within Lincolnshire is wide and varied, and we try to tailor it as much as we can do to each individual foster carer, but there are a universal offering as well. Relationship-based practice is at the heart of what we do in Lincolnshire, and I'd like to invite Polly to talk about her experience of accessing support and working with supervising social workers, children's social workers and other professionals, because I think that lived experience is really quite important. So if you wouldn't mind, Polly, if you could share a little bit about your experience.
Yeah, so for anybody who doesn't know, I've been a foster carer for 20 years. So obviously, and I have seen a big changes in the service, but I think what's really important is relationships and connection. And I think for all of us to work around the child as a team. I get my supervising social worker will visit me each month, and obviously we'll talk about the children, but also talk about our family and supporting us as a whole. But also we found like having the connection with the children's social worker as well and forming a relationship with them. And I think it's really vital for all the professionals involved to look at how they're all individually connecting to the children. And that has been a really important part. And I think, especially when social workers are changing quite, sometimes they can change quite regularly. And if a child's in permanence, they can have quite a number of social workers. So I do find that there are always discussions to be had how that new social worker can connect with a child who might not be able to trust someone very easily, and yet is this person's coming in and obviously touching on those most difficult parts of your life. So yeah, so I think relationship and connection, and also just looking at things in a different way and very therapeutically for each individual children, and talking together as a team, and working out how to deal with any challenges and things. So, I mean, also, I suppose with the placement support workers as well, they will come in if there is a particular difficulty in a placement, and they might do a particular piece of work in foster care as well. So, yeah, it's quite complicated. There's a lot of people involved, but I think Lincolnshire are very good at building the relationships between the professionals, and including the foster carers professionals, and then looking at how best as a team to work therapeutically with the children. So, well,
Thank you very much, Polly. Yeah, indeed, obviously we see our foster carers as professionals as well, and welcome the contributions that they make in the reviews. For example, I think when you were talking then, Polly, I was thinking actually the review often plays a role in pulling all of those professionals together and helping think about what role we all play in that child's life. So the support offer to our foster carers is much wider than just what the fostering service itself offers. It's also about how we work with the wider children's services. So moving on slightly, recruitment and retention of course remains an area, a high priority area for us, as highlighted in the report. The Fostering Network published research into recruitment and retention, which included recommendations for fostering services to incorporate lived experiences into the application process, and to build good quality relationship-based practice and ensure good support. And this just served as a reminder, really, of the good practice that influences people to join Lincolnshire Fostering Service and motivates people to apply to us. Over the period from April to August 2023, 169 children became children in care for the first time, and of these, 119 were placed in foster care and kinship care arrangements. And at the same time, the number of children and young people exiting care stood at 155, with the highest proportion leaving care by route of adoption, reunification to family, and moving on to living independently within a supported accommodation or special guardianships or orders. So they're all very positive ends. So the fostering service take every opportunity to raise awareness in the community and deliver the message of what we do and around the need for foster carers, and trying to establish Lincolnshire as the service of choice, and we're doing that by being more present in the local community and working with many people to do that. Of course, we'd be foolish to ignore online, and the online presence is really important. We have, I believe, a creative and targeted marketing approach, which includes online recruitment events, and fostering information evenings have been advertised through paid adverts on social media, and our adverts also direct people towards the fostering service webpage. Participation in the online information evenings remains higher than face-to-face events, and fortuitously can be delivered in a more cost-effective way. So that is our priority in terms of how we do the information evenings, but we continue to keep that under review. And the service has led several pop-up stalls in local areas as well. So we're increasing our presence in local areas as well. So people can just drop in to a coffee shop, for example, and have a chat with the fostering service. We're present at the Lincolnshire show. We're making sure that we're out there in the community so people can have those discussions around becoming a foster carer with Lincolnshire. The recruitment team have started to record at the initial inquiry stage people's motivation for fostering. I nearly said adopting then. Their motivation for fostering, and also the type of fostering that they're interested in. And the reason for doing this is so that we can inform our recruitment and advertising strategy. The focus remains on learning from losses as well. So when people leave the service, we want to understand why they've left, so we can conduct exit interviews to look at how we might have done things differently. And of course, people leave sometimes because they're retiring, there's ill health, there are lots of reasons why people leave, but we want to understand each person's individual reason for leaving so that we can make sure that there wasn't anything we could have done differently. But we're also interested in understanding why people stay, so we're looking at introducing stay interviews. So we will talk to them about what helps them to feel valued as a foster carer in Lincolnshire, so that we can carry on doing more of the things that are really appreciated by our carers. And the reason for that is that retention is our most effective means of recruitment. Every year we survey our foster carers. We do an annual survey, and that annual survey highlighted that the community approach to support is the one that is most valued by our foster carers, and it's one of the strongest elements of our support offer within Lincolnshire. So our fostering hub continues to be supported by our foster carer champions, and our gratitude to them can't be understated. We do community events throughout the year, and there was a very rainy barbecue in the north during the summer. I think the south had slightly better weather that year. And we also recognise that when families foster, that they are part of a family. It's not just the foster carer. So we also offer support to foster carers' existing children. And we did an event in the summer called we do Supportive Superstars throughout the year, but we did an event in the summer for the Supportive Superstars, which was for the existing children of foster carers to connect with one another and to have some peers who understand that shared experience of having a foster child in their home. During this period, we have moving on to advertising, sorry, I should have said, I'm just moving on and should have said moving on to advertising. We have paid attention to the consistency of branding and an emphasis on appealing to local communities, because we really do understand that children are best placed in their own community. Performance data indicates that our videos were more successful than other forms of advertising online, and the recruitment team have created a paid video advertisement for the information events. The recruitment team reported an increased reach of 468% and an increased engagement of 196% with our video adverts, and 157 people on Facebook use the advert to visit the service website. So we are looking at how effective our advertising strategy is as well, and what reach it's having. The figures, when we see that we've had a wide reach, and then we look at the number of inquiries and think that there's a mismatch, that's because research shows us that a lot of people think about fostering for several years before they actually make that application to foster. So that reach really is important, even if it's not immediately translated into inquiries. It means that we're planting that seed, we're planting the seed that this is Lincolnshire, and we should be your provider of choice when it comes to fostering, because of course we do have some competition externally as well. Attracting long-term foster carers remains a priority for the service, and profiles and campaigns are created for children seeking permanent foster homes, which includes anonymised profiles which are shared online. So they are completely anonymous, but we see that these profiles create a lot of attention online. They kind of get the best engagement, and I think that's because people are connecting with the individual children. So there is some branding consistency for them, but obviously each profile is tailored to the children that it's representing. And we have had inquiries on the back of those individual profiles. Family finding is the process that we use for securing fostering families for children seeking permanence, and it continues to be a priority area for us. The service meets monthly to consider all children with a plan of long-term fostering who do not already have a long-term placement identified. There has been a steady increase in the last 2 years of children referred to family finders, and this period alone has seen an additional 10 children referred to family finders positively. It's also seen 8 children removed from family finders after the service has been successful in achieving permanence for them. Family finding figures have dropped over this quarter, with now 27 children awaiting permanent foster placements, which is made up of 6 sibling groups of 2 children and 15 singleton children. 8 of those children are in residential settings and 2 are with independent fostering agencies, and the other 17 are with in-house carers. The fostering service is currently preparing for its next permanence event. Having held one in July, we're currently preparing to hold one in December. And I'd like to draw your attention to page 78. During the Ofsted inspection in April 2023, members of the family finding team met with the inspectors to discuss how children in Lincolnshire are supported to achieve permanence, and the Ofsted report highlighted leaders, managers and staff understand the importance of children achieving permanence without delay. Permanence is considered early. For some children, this is before they enter care. Once in care, leaders closely track children's plans for permanence, and permanence plans progress at a suitable pace in line with the children's needs. Delays are either purposeful or unavoidable, and social workers consider all permanent options from children through concurrent planning and identify the best option for them. So I think it just wanted to highlight that our approach to permanence was recognised in the recent Ofsted inspection, and I don't think I need to remind you what the outcome of that was. Moving on to think about training and development. Obviously this is a vital part of our offer to foster carers, and it's crucial in the development of foster carer skills. So we encourage training and development from the outset, and we're seeing an increase of applicants accessing the mandatory training before they're even approved. So that's just really encouraging. And our training offers ensures that we have a wide range of foster carers able to offer different levels and different types of support to our children and young people. On page 80, there is an outline of the different courses that have been held in the first half of the year, but as you can see, 44 courses were delivered and 573 attendees took part in those 44 courses. So that's really positive, but I won't go through all of those courses. I'll save you that. I think what's really important, and something that we do, and I hope Polly would agree, something that we do well is to recognise the contribution of our foster carers, who we mustn't ever forget are volunteers. So the foster carer celebration is one way in which we do that, and this took place in April this year. Councillor Rowe, I remember you being present, and I personally thought that this was a really lovely event that highlighted just how much our fostering community do and how valued they are. There were long service awards given, and tokens of gratitude were also shared. But it was just a really joyful event, I felt. And of course, some excellent news came at the end of that day as well. Kinship remains obviously a core element of the fostering service, and we all know that there are changes coming with the government kinship care strategy to be delivered at the end of, and Tara, you can correct me if I'm right, but at the end of this year, if I'm wrong, sorry, you can correct me if I'm right as well, but correct me if I'm wrong, but this strategy should be in place at the end of this year, and it came about from the care review, which just really highlighted the things that I think we all recognise, but it never, it's important to remember the value and importance of kinship carers. We understand the benefits that kinship care provides to our children, and we feel that we're developed in our thinking and practice in the use of family networks. So when a child enters care, the family network is fully explored from the beginning. And a key principle for all social workers is that the best place for a child to be is usually in their family. So we really do kind of hold fast to that. There are some statistics on pages 82 and 83, and as you can see, between the 1st of July and the 30th of September, there were 44 pieces of kinship work. In relation to the figures, the number of referrals has increased each quarter from the previous financial year and from the first quarter to the second quarter of this year, and that's mostly seen in the number of special guardianship assessments, and the number of Regulation 24 assessments has increased, but not as much. Quarter 2 saw quite a drop in the number of private fostering assessments, with no Homes for Ukraine assessments in quarter 2, and I think that's the explanation behind the drop in those private fostering assessments. We have recently announced our status as a pathway authority, which is very exciting, and I was recently involved in interviewing for a new practice supervisor who will lead on the strategic element of developing those family networks as part of this initiative, and it will look at how the family network is considered all across children's services. So although they will sit within the fostering service, the work is far wider than that. When children turn 18, as you know, we have a staying put arrangement in place, and during quarter 1, the total number of young people in staying put arrangements was 41, but this figure fluctuated during quarter 2, with it standing at 37 at the end of the second quarter. But I just wanted to highlight that of the 41 people in this scheme in quarter 1, 4 were at university and 25 were in further education. And then in quarter 2, 6 young people were at university and 16 in further education and 8 in employment. So it remains a core requirement of the scheme that the young people are positively engaged in education and employment and training, and we can see that overall that is effective. So I think that I will wrap it up there, but just to say that the service continues to be committed to supporting its foster carers and ensuring that we do all we can to support children in Lincolnshire to have a positive care experience.
Thank you. Do we have any? No questions? Anybody wish to ask a question? No. Thank you for quite a thorough report. I think we all continue to be proud of our fostering service, and especially our fostering families. Obviously, we can't rest on our laurels, and I know we won't.
No, we
won't. So thank you very much, and thank you for your contribution, Polly.
Thank you.
So that obviously concludes the discussion. I propose that the panel has reviewed the report and accepts the attached report as an accurate overview of the fostering service. Can I ask you raise your hands if you're in agreement, please? Thank you, that is agreed. Thank you once again. Item 8, Private Fostering Annual Report 2022-23. This item on pages 87 to 102 of the agenda pack presents the Private Fostering Annual Report for 2022 to 2032 and informs the panel about the work of the broader children's fostering service in relation to private fostering. The report will be presented by Nicola Brangham, Fostering Team Manager South. The Corporate Parenting Panel is invited to review and endorse the Private Fostering Annual Report 2022 to 2023. And over to you, Nicola. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Hopefully you've all had the opportunity to read and digest the Private Fostering Annual Report as well as the Statement of Purpose. What I'd like to do is just, I suppose, highlight a few areas, and obviously I'm following on from my colleague Emily this morning. But I did really want to just highlight and again reiterate to corporate parenting the differences in terms of a child, a young person who is in a private fostering arrangement, and to really make that clear. So private fostering applies to those children and young people who are under 16 years of age or 18 if they have a disability, where they live with someone who is not what we define as a close relative. And these arrangements are made by those with parental responsibility and are not made effectively by the local authority. Just for the purposes of clarification around the definitions, close relatives are defined in legislation as grandparents, brothers, sisters, uncles or aunts, whether by full or half-blood or by marriage, and step-parents. The report really wants to highlight our activity over this period and really wanted to kind of draw your attention to our performance, because obviously that's very, very important. So when we look at the key performance, so we're looking at the private fostering arrangements. So when referrals are made through the front door, as we like to call it, and come through to our FAST teams, there are very clear timescales that are set down under the private fostering arrangements regulations. And they are required to conduct these assessments within a very set period of time, being 7 days, and to see children and young people alone in these arrangements. And I'm really pleased to report that the performance is really positive around that, and that we've achieved 100% in those in that particular target area. We're also required, once the assessments come through, once those arrangements are confirmed, that is going to proceed to a full assessment, they will then come to the fostering service, where we will then conduct the assessments of the prospective private foster carers. And that's a thorough piece of work that's completed by the supervising social workers within the fostering service. Once those are completed, we regularly track on a weekly basis, and you'll have seen from the report that I think historically the government required a data return around the particular performance. That's no longer a requirement, but in Lincolnshire we have felt very passionately about this particular group of children who have often been, I think, referred to as perhaps potentially the unseen or the unknown group. So it's really important that as a local authority we continue to highlight and ensure that both staff in children's services, but also our wider partnerships are also fully aware of any changes or developments. I also wanted to highlight the work that we've done with the Safeguarding Children's Partnership, and one of the key things that we've done is to review the online training that's available. And also within that, you'll have seen in the report that some of our makeup in terms of our performance and young people are made up of some of the young people who have come to the UK from the Ukraine. Now, the government back in, Tara, I'm sure you'll correct me, but I think it was July 22, legislation was changed that we needed to use the private fostering arrangements for children who were coming to the UK on an unaccompanied basis, where through the Homes for Ukraine scheme it had been identified that there were families here where they had an existing and established relationship. We responded very rapidly to those changes and were able to put in motion the necessary steps to ensure that those young people equally their welfare was promoted and safeguarded. So in terms of the numbers, and you'll see that, like Richard, I also like bar charts, apologies, but on page 91, whilst I know that it may look unusual to report on some of those more historical data figures, I think it is important just to highlight the context of that. And as many of you will know and will have read in this report, the arrangements around private fostering, for those of you who will remember Victoria Climbié, that really was a catalyst in terms of ensuring that local authorities and agencies were very mindful, aware and clear on their responsibilities. You will have seen in the report that clearly there have been periods of time on those bar charts where the numbers have been much higher. It's clear that our activity continues to remain consistent in terms of the promotion of private fostering, the awareness, and as a service, both myself and Emily take absolute care and attention in reviewing all of the private fostering arrangements when they come through to us, and that is a joint decision that is made between us as team managers with the specific frontline managers also. I would also like to just highlight that, as you've heard this morning, there's been a lot of conversation about achieving permanence. And obviously one of the things that we also are very clear about is watching very carefully where there are particularly young children in private fostering arrangements, because we don't feel that does not provide those children with the legal security that they need. So we operate, I think it's fair to say, a high challenge, high support model. And where we feel or are concerned that children are not, that there may be some worries around what is the plan, what is the trajectory, where are we going, we will be having very clear conversations both with any prospective foster carers, but also with our colleagues who are holding who hold the children's welfare in terms of their responsibilities. So really, I think it's, you know, there are very clear timescales that people need to adhere to. There's very clear trajectories that, as a service, we are monitoring and watching. I have a dedicated practice supervisor who has responsibility on a weekly basis for keeping a track on all of our children who are privately fostered, and ensuring that the specific regulations, being Regulation 8, that the specific visits, which have to take place on a 6-weekly basis, or if a child's been there over 12 months, it can then be extended. But those decisions are made on a management level. I would welcome the panel if you have any particular questions on.
Councillor Clark.
Thank you very much for that concise and very detailed report. I'm interested in this. I'm interested in it all, but this particularly, for these particular group of children, for private fostering, could obviously take place before the authority is notified. So how does that process work then? You must rely on other information and intelligence coming into you about certain things. How does that work? How do you operate around that? Because obviously that would be quite delicate, and you would need to be very careful about how you dealt with that and how you dealt with that data and that information that comes into you. So yeah, I'm really interested in how this operation works, but it's quite clear that you are providing an absolutely exemplary service here, and that you are catching these children who might actually have slipped through the net and quite dangerous. So I'm really interested in all of this. If you could just expand on that a little bit for me, I'd be really grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, I suppose our first starting point is, as you will have read in the report, there is a requirement for parents to report to the local authority. Now, they are required under the regulations to do that at least 6 weeks before an arrangement is made. In theory, that's not always the case. So we rely very heavily on our partner agencies to identify these children and young people, to be curious, to ask those questions. And I may defer to my colleague also, but I believe, Sarah, within the education system, I know that I had this conversation a few years ago when I also had lead for this area, around making sure within the school census that we are clear what is the basis, who are caring for these children, and what basis are they there. Because it is quite, I think it is quite easy. And if you're not curious, you're not asking those questions, we need to make sure that children don't slip through a net. And I have to say the partnership, LSCP, have been excellent in supporting us. I think as well the revamp of our training programme as well, you know, which is available to all agencies. It relies heavily, I think, on agencies. And when I drill down into where are our referrals coming from, it is predominantly through agencies. So it's mainly schools. It's mainly schools. So I'd obviously want to thank schools for raising this with us. That helps.
Councillor Matthews.
Thank you for a good report, and thank you for updating the information you provided. My first question is about the trend, because, as you say, historically this data is very useful in this context, because it's showing a reduction from 2012 steadily, and then it shows us a massive increase of notifications in both 2021 and 2023, but it is clearly a downward trend. There is then a difference, and the scaling doesn't help me very much, but there's a difference between the notifications and the fostering arrangements at year end. So it looks as though in 2021 there was a difference between the notifications and the fostering arrangements made, and I wonder what that difference was. It looks like it was 2 or 3, and the reason for that. There's a significant difference between the number of private fostering notifications in 2023 and the arrangements made. So 2 or 3 questions in here, but is that because we haven't reached the year end yet? And then really interesting in the table below about ethnicity, which was the question we asked. So white, any other background, or any other white background, 12, and 11 Ukrainians in the nationality, which means to make perfect sense to me. There's 33 in the gender, there's 33 in the nationality, but there's 35 in the ethnicity code. It says 2 are unspecified, so I don't know what that means. That's an accounting error. Also, the gender is unknown, and that throws an interesting question, but in this day and age, I understand exactly where that might be coming from. The question on that table is, what about cross-channel immigrants and other people coming into the country? Because I understand the white, any other background being Ukrainian and the impact of the war in Ukraine, but there are other global movement issues where there are young people. Are they going to feature, or likely to feature, or featuring but not declared yet, not recorded? So a couple of really, I'm not doing very well on my questions today, am I? Sorry. So thank you ever so much for putting the data in, because it allows us to look at it, and that's really, really helpful. And then in looking at it, it looks to me as though we're fostering white Europeans largely. So I'm asking, my second question was about, you know, is there somebody there that we're not fostering, or that we're not engaged with, or it's not our responsibility? And then about that difference between the throughput of notifications to placements.
Thank you. I will hopefully try and answer, and if I don't get this quite right, please put me back on track. So I think in terms of the notifications and those at the year end, I think what you've got to look at there is we'll have notifications of young people who are in hopefully a private fostering arrangement, but then at the year end we will have the ones that end will be some of those young people who have turned 16. So those arrangements will then have ended, so that the figures, what you start with at one end of the year, it won't be the same group of children. So there's it's all to do with the who comes through, who might be turning 16 or 18. So it's that's why that bar chart looks the way it does. Just turning to your second question, could you clarify that again for me, please?
Thank you for the first one. So, just to go back to that one, and then I'll ask the second question. So the lower number in the placements at year end is not actually lower. It is a drop off because people earlier in the system have left for age reasons or different reasons. I wonder if might be a way you could show us that in future as well, because there isn't really a discrepancy, is there? Everything matches, but it looks as though it doesn't match. That's all. So thank you for that. My second one is, thank you ever so much for the stuff on ethnicity. And I'm concerned for us if there are another group of young children who are not Ukrainian, but who could be arriving in this country as immigrants through different routes. And I'm surprised none of them are featuring here, but I might completely misunderstand our responsibilities with regard to that group.
I would say that, again, this goes back to our strategy around raising awareness. If you think about, I suppose, if we think about maybe young children, I would be expecting, for example, health colleagues to be identifying any of those children. I would be expecting GPs potentially to be identifying those children. And I think it's about the awareness raising that we do. I'm more than happy to take that conversation away and have another look at it. But I feel confident that through the Safeguarding Partnership, and particularly because we revamped the training, which also brought in around thinking, not just thinking about, for example, teenagers, thinking broadly, being curious, and I think that's the key bit. But I'm more than happy, and I'm sure, Tara, you would agree, in taking that back to have any further conversations with LSCP as well.
Thank you. I don't know the right words to use to talk about the children that I'm referring to, but all of the news, everything is about, we're getting a significant number of young people coming into this country being placed into hostels or hotels or things like that. And I can't believe that none of them would want to be entering into our fostering. So that's all. And clearly, if they're not being flagged up to you, you can't engage. But I do think there might be an information flow mismatch here, that's all.
Councillor Kelly, please.
Thank you. I think Councillor Matthews has just clarified it. Sorry to talk across. Do you mean children coming in on small boats? Is that what you mean? I'm a bit confused. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. So I think that would be really useful to get clarification on that. Yeah. 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 Thanks.
We're talking about a different cohort of children here. Yeah. So I think what you're referring to is our unaccompanied young children, and it's a completely different process. So in terms of their arrival and arriving at the port and then going through the national transfer scheme once they've been age assessed as a young person, and they become children in care, not privately fostered.
So we're completely confused. So that isn't part of the private fostering, that is another category. So it's unaccompanied children, because obviously they might not be coming with their parents. So where does that actually feature then in all this data? Does it not feature?
No, that's a separate cohort. There are children in care cohorts, so they're involved in all the reports that we bring around children in care.
Thank you. Councillor Sear.
Thank you for the report. I'm quite very impressed. Finally, somebody take notice of one item. I don't want to, when I know the family, they contact me, continue. And I tell them, finally, somebody take the notice. I'm very pleased, so I won't have no more conversation or phone call from that category. I know who they are, but I thank you very much for somebody do take the notice. I was so concerned. Thank you.
Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, officers, for clarifying that, because I actually was going to pick up on a very similar thing. With the report stating the kinship and the extension to Ukrainian children who are arriving unaccompanied. And of course, I would hope that Lincolnshire would welcome any child unaccompanied from anywhere, any conflict within the world at all, that we would welcome that, because we're good at it. Obviously, we're good at it. So we want to be able to do that, and Noise picked up on it as well. So that's something that I need to do some homework on, and would welcome actually having a chat with somebody, the most appropriate officer, to build up my knowledge on that. Because if it's a different cohort, then obviously I don't want to be wasting your time talking about it here. But if somebody could signpost me to that, the right person to speak to, and then I can get that information privately. Is that okay? Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so I think that's all the questions asked. So I propose that the panel has reviewed the report and endorses the private fostering annual report for 2022-23. Can I ask you to raise your hands if you're in agreement? Thank you, that is agreed. Thank you very much for the report. So we move on to agenda item 9, the annual report of the Regional Adoption Agency. This item on pages 103 to 130 of the agenda pack presents the 2022-23 annual report for the Regional Adoption Agency Family Adoption Links. The report will be presented by Tara Jones, Assistant Director, Children's Safeguarding. The actions required are that the Corporate Parenting Panel is invited to review the report and endorse the Family Adoption Links annual report 2022-23 as an accurate record of activity across the Family Adoption Links partnership operating as a regional adoption agency. Thank you, Tara.
Thank you. So yes, this report represents the Family Adoption Links second annual report of 2022-23. So the partnership is a regional adoption alliance, and it's been branded for the East Midlands as Family Adoption Links. So Family Adoption Links comprises of North Lincolnshire, Leicestershire, Leicester City, Lincolnshire and Rutland, and it was created in November 2020. We had Northampton's Children's Trust join us in January 2022. And for the scope of Family Adoption Links, the services for Rutland are delivered by Lincolnshire. So just a reminder about the objectives of the Regional Adoption Alliance. It was set up to increase the pool of adopters available for children across the partnership and enhance the services available to prospective and approved adopters. So the RAA oversees a number of key areas of adoption provision, including the recruitment of adopters, assessment and training, matching and placement of children, along with the development and coordination of post-adoption support services. The delivery of services to children adopters remains integrated into each local authority's children's services adoption teams. The model of delivery is a decentralised one, where there's a small hub of centralised staff within Family Adoption Links, but most components of the adoption service remain with the partner local authorities. The strategic ambitions are developed by a representative board, which I'm part of, and delivered by a head of service, who is John Harris, in conjunction with leads from each of the partner agencies. So in essence, the core Family Adoption Links hub staff comprises of data analyst, marketing officer, business support staff, and the head of service. So the centralised structures are focused on the delivery of core components of the adoption services, including initial contact, information sharing, pre and post approval training, data analysis, administrative support, and what we found is this centralised hub has delivered financial efficiencies by avoiding duplication and retaining virtual delivery where appropriate to do so. So in addition, the centralised approach to family finders has seen a significant shift from the spend of local authorities on external adoption placements and a greater use of FAL partnership placements. And this has resulted in quite a significant cost saving across the East Midlands region. So in terms of some progress, so the operational focus of FAL continues to be the development and maintenance of key pillars of activities. And those work streams are around assessment and approval, family finding, adoption support and early permanence. Each one of those work streams is actually led by a service lead from the individual local authorities. And Sharon Clark, who's here with me today, actually leads on, it's the early permanence work stream. So in terms of the highlights, so I have to say the Family Adoption Links website is fantastic. It's at the heart of everything that Family Adoption Links do. And it's been created to maximise the recruitment of adopters and support activities for the partnership. So the website empowers potential adopters to self-serve with information on the children we are family finding for, and gives them the ability to book on to information events. 451 places were booked this year on those information events. They can watch the You Can Adopt video, they can download a You Can Adopt information guide, or speak to a member of staff. In addition, the site is a key pillar in our post-adoption support offer across the region. So again, adopters can book on training, watch online videos, access the Adopter Resource Hub. That was a collaborative piece of work between the Alliance and the adopters themselves. And users to the website have increased by 358% this year. Recruitment activity, that's delivered via marketing and recruitment strategy and embraces a range of social media interactive activities. Content and posts from the Family Adoption Links Facebook pages were seen by 29,910 people in the first 12 months. There's discovery events focusing on children who are waiting for adoption, and they usually are children that will wait a bit longer because of their specific needs. They can access getting to know you events, which bring prospective adopters together with children on a dynamic activity-based day. And the first of these resulted in 5 matches, and subsequent events have enabled Family Adoption Links to invite interest from adopters from even a neighbouring regional adoption alliance. There are regional monthly family finding meetings in place, and all children without an identified link to an adopter are discussed and tracked to either a match being ratified by the agency decision maker, or if a care plan changes away from one of adoption. The approach of the family finding meetings has been hugely successful, ensuring that more children are placed within the FAL region. This means that we know our adopters and our children well, and there's been a regional financial saving, as I said previously, in the cost of using interagency placements. The adoption support work stream builds on the practice delivered within the aforementioned work streams, and all partners have a different post-adoption support offer, and that's likely to remain the same, but the ambition is for all adopters at the point of initial contact to have information support available, with the website signposting to local details. There's post-order training with direct access to the training hub, offering a range of relevant training courses. And the establishment of the Adopter Hub means there's co-production at the heart of everything that FAL does when it engages with adopters. And also, we've developed Collaborate, which is an online community for young people who have been adopted in place to offer both support and ensure that children's voice is central to the service delivery and service development direction. Just a quick one on one of the work streams, which is around producing and delivering an education passport. That's to help schools understand the needs of adopted children. So it doesn't replace anything like an EHC plan or their care plan, but but actually what it does is help schools understand the needs of adopted children, including how their life experiences may impact on their development and functioning. That's really key, and the passport's going to be launched this autumn, so we're all very excited about that. Finally, some performance headlines. So we've placed 16 more children within FAL in 22-23 than in 21-22. And we placed 82%, 108 of our children within the region, within FAL in 22-23. We have placed 14 less children externally to FAL in 22-23 in comparison to 21-22. And our external placements have dropped from 38 to 24. And I just want to end the report just to say that Ofsted are beginning their thematic inspections of regional adoption agencies. The Ofsted themed inspections are actually taking place now, so between October and December 2023. We have not had that call yet on a Monday. We're wondering whether they might want to look at us because we're a little bit different with the anomaly of having Northamptonshire Children's Trust within the region and also having North Lincolnshire. And actually, most of our Adopt-A-Map activity has been retained by the respective local authorities. And all of the inspections, the ILACS inspections within the region have been really positive about the adoption services that local authority continue to deliver. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? No? Oh, sorry. Councillor Kelly.
Thank you for your report. Can you just give me some more detail about the education passport? I sort of get the general idea, but if you could just say what other information is contained on that.
Yeah, so within that there's an all about me. So it's kind of really the child speaking about what their likes are, what the dislikes, maybe what some of the triggers might be in terms of their behaviour. We know that children that have experienced trauma, might be triggered by smells, just any change in the environment, sensory, etc. So it's a really helpful tool for education providers. It also really helpfully provides kind of information guide to schools around adoption and around what post-adoption support services are available, and signposts where schools and education settings can actually contact if they want more support. It is going to be, it will be reviewed at every transition point, and it's normally on an annual basis. As I say, it doesn't replace any existing education, health or care plan. That's completely separate. And the education passport was a real collaborative production, including the virtual heads across the region, and with adopters and with the voices of the children and young people. I don't know if you want to add anything else around the education passport, Sharon.
Yeah, just really to add that from our post-order support team, a huge majority of calls we have every week are around issues with children struggling education, adopters really needing some specialist targeted help around how to support their adopted child. And these adopted children may have had, may have not needed any additional support until they get into the school system, and then that's really highlighted. And I think it is to help education settings understand the attachment needs of adopted children are going to be very different to, the rest of the cohort potentially, who haven't experienced those really difficult early trauma experiences that children with a plan of adoption will have experienced.
So it's not just proof of identity, it's like a massive profile of what has happened or not happened. That's not a really good use of a word, but gives more detail about the child.
Yeah, about what might be different and
Yeah.
how we might need to support this child slightly differently,
Yes.
in a more therapeutic
So
way.
it's giving like
Yeah.
pointers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Councillor Whittington.
Yeah, I really enjoyed reading this report because obviously we went through the adoption process over 20 years ago, and whilst some of the elements in there are the same, there seems to be a lot more focused than it was. It's sort of bringing back memories of our first getting to know meetings and trade meetings and things like that. So yeah, really, it's not so much really a question, but just to say that really through the report, I mean, our adoption service was good then, but I think it's even better now, and it's great to see all those. Because for me, then to now, can actually see a lot of the same elements, but kind of enhanced and improved, and especially around post-adoption support, because I think that was the thing in the offer that was possibly a little bit lacking 20 years ago. Adoption support was kind of more informal, and adopters tended to have more informal arrangements with each other. Certainly when our adopted son's sibling group, who were with different, some of the group were in foster care and some were adopted and whatever. So we kind of set up our own support group to support each other. But it's great to see it being more formalised. So no real questions, but just a big congratulations for, reading through the report, and you can actually see. So it looks like it's a fantastic service. So thanks very much indeed. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else wish to make a point or ask a question? No, that's great. So this concludes the discussion. I propose that the panel has reviewed the report and endorses the Family Adoption Links Annual Report 2022-23 as an accurate record of the activity across the Family Adoption Links Partnership operating as a regional adoptional agency. Can I ask you to raise your hands if you're in agreement, please? Yep, thank you, already agreed. Thank you very much, Tara. Thank you very much, Sharon. So we now move on to item 10. Lincolnshire Children in Care Council Voices for Choices, V4C, update report. This item on pages 131 to 144 of the agenda pack presents an overview of the activities of the V4C from April to August and the actions being undertaken to support future planning and progress. The report will be presented by Ben Lilly, Practice Supervisor, Children's Services, Quality and Standards, and the Corporate Parenting Panel is invited to provide comment and steer regarding V4C activities and meetings undertaken within the reporting period, future planning and delivery of the V4C meetings and activities. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, yes, so I'm just going to briefly talk through the report and give you an overview of the activities and the meetings of the Children in Care Council over this reporting period. And it's pleasing to state that from the start of this reporting period, we have seen an increase in the number of young people who are attending and engaging. So in April at our event at the showroom, we had 17 young people attend. Discussions within that session raised around the support that they were receiving from workers. We also talked about planning for the FAB Awards, which took place in June 2023, which I'll talk about in a minute. And we get a number of young people involved in supporting the planning and the delivery of that session. The meeting also talked about discussions about consistency in having social workers, and there was discussions and changes in social workers, and there was discussions about that to help young people understand why a change in social workers sometimes takes place and is unfortunately unavoidable. And the meeting also talked about how we can review and change the way how we deliver our Children in Care Council, which we have done over this year, which I'll come to in due course. So, yeah, a big piece of work that the Children in Care Council involved in is the FAB Awards, which took place on the 17th of June in 2023 of this year. And this is a very big event, which is attended by approximately 500 young people, professionals and carers, and we had 250 approximate children and young people attend. So that was a really successful session. Moving on from that through the rest of this period of reporting, we have looked at how we've delivered the Children and Care Council meeting, and we've been looking to see how we can increase attendances, and we've looked at changing the meetings to daytime meetings in school holidays, and the first one of those took place on the 1st of September, where we had 13 young people attend. So again, this is an increase of what we were previously reporting on when we were in sort of single figures. So we had 13 attend on in the daytime at Hartsheim Country Park, and we provided an orienteering activity by the park ranger there. And the meeting's very much now focused around Lincolnshire Children's Services Care in Promise. So we're using that document to focus discussions to look at the type of support young people are receiving in terms of their feedback around issues relating to school, education, leisure, looking at the positive experiences in care, which are highlighted in the report, and some of the things that the group could do to look at raising awareness of the group and gaining more feedback from other young people. Just to add to where we are, going back to Councillor Rowe's statement at the start, just outside of this reporting period, we've had the most recent meeting in October half term where we had 19 young people attend. So our figures are growing, which is good to see. And it seems to me we're getting a bit of better quality feedback as a result in terms of some of the views that young people are talking about in terms of their experiences relating to school, independent reviewing officers, for example. So going forward, we're going to continue with this format of daytime meetings within the school holiday periods. It seems to help with getting over barriers such as late evening meetings and transport issues, and gives more time for a nice lunch to be provided and an activity to be provided to them after the formal meeting. And we'll be putting together a programme of dates and sessions from early next year for the rest of the year. So it's really nice to be here today to actually report an increase in the numbers of young people who are attending. Obviously, we always want more, and just want to take this opportunity to thank some of our frontline managers here for giving us the support to help with this.
Thank you, Ben. Do we have any questions? Yeah, Councillor Whittington.
Yeah, thanks very much indeed. Thanks for the report. Just been on a few things. I can see why you're doing it, because sort of page 135, you sort of talk about the problem that if you do events during school time, and you call young people out, obviously it may, as you highlighted, the other pupils then can victimise them and bully. So I'm really pleased that you're taking steps around that. In terms of then sort of going on to the sort of positive experience being in care, because you talk about sort of other activities that a child living with their birth parents, they probably do have the opportunity to do various sports and activities and whatever. I coach, after retiring from playing rugby, I coached junior rugby for about 10 years, so it's very important that children come along to all these sports clubs, and obviously the last thing we want to do is for our children in care to be able to become involved in those sorts of activities, because I think that's really important, and I particularly like the section on how to grow it, talking about having the young people themselves go on visits and making a video, because I think that sounds like an excellent idea, because they can kind of take ownership of it. It'd be also interesting as well, because I recently visited a young person's arts project in Grantham, where the young people themselves were actually making the videos as well as taking part in them for various things. So I think that would be really, really positive. And the idea about having branded items such as hoodies to kind of build that sort of sense that they're all they're all part of got a shared experience. Yeah. So it's just really, really positive reading through, and delighted to see that you're trying to find new ways to deal with to deal with issues. So I think that's really, for me, quite positive.
Yeah, I'd just like to come back on that, the point you made about the video. It's only just come about this week, but Lincolnshire Children's Services have been asked to lead an East Midlands Children in Care working group to produce a video, just like you're saying, and Nottingham Trent University are going to be sort of involved in helping us produce that. So I'm chairing a subgroup of our East Midlands regional participation leads to do that video now. So I think the plan is to probably take some of our young people from our Children in Care Council to Nottingham. They'll meet some of the other young people from the East Midlands and they'll produce this sort of video online resource, which we'll then be able to share with professionals in schools and across the children's workforce about their views and about the kind of support they want and how they want it. But that's literally only just come about this week, and I'll be reporting on that in the future. And the hoodie side of it is something that we've found works well with some of our other participation groups. So you're right, the idea of that is to develop an identity to a group, and it helps with a bit of a cohesion, really.
Okay, any further questions? Yes, Councillor Clark.
Yeah, just to pick up on that point that you mentioned there, Ben, about the video, is that something that you could share with this panel?
Yeah.
So that we could experience and see, understand more. It's a great report, actually. I'm so pleased because it's about inclusion, and any child who, whatever their care is, they shouldn't ever be made to feel uncomfortable about it.
Yeah.
And as Mark rightly says, let's take ownership of it and promote it as a positive thing. That's fabulous. But I would like to see that video.
Okay, rest assured that video will be showing on that screen in the future.
Brilliant.
So whenever it's done and how it works, we will get this.
Well, yeah, especially if Lincolnshire's leading again. We're leading again. How many times do we hear this in this chamber, that Lincolnshire is leading on this, this? And here we are doing something that's really positive, wonderful thing. And so, yeah, I would really welcome the information.
Hopefully we will get that video up there in the future when it's done. But we've got an initial meeting, I think, the week after the next, holding with the other participation leads in the East Midlands, and we'll get to find out more from there, really. But yeah, definitely be up there. And I think the idea would be, how I would see it, would be incorporated into like an online training course, which would sit on the Lincolnshire Safeguarding Children's Partnership website as a course where people could go and access it that way. So that's the plan. As the elected members and managers who attended the most recent meeting in October half term, it is a tough gig. We've got some challenging, they've got their views and they're quite forthright, and we've got a challenge to maintain the attendance and the engagement going forward. But it is nice to come here today and to talk about some higher numbers of attendance than in previous times.
Okay, do we have... Okay, any further questions? Okay, that's great. Thank you, Ben. I fully support what you do, and I enjoy going to the what was big conversations.
I know you do. You do well on the marshmallow challenge as well.
Oh, well, yeah. I didn't want to mention that we won.
You did.
The last one, I gave you my feedback. The pieces was good. The room was challenging, but actually the output, and I think Tara will agree, what we got out of it was very good.
Yeah.
The young people certainly, and I keep saying it, they say what they think.
For those who don't know what the Twisted Tensions room is, it's an escape rooms, which that activity was done in the afternoon, which was great. And the meeting where we held the meeting it was fine, but it was a bit of sensory overload because there was lots of like computer games against the walls, so we were kind of like competing against them looking at the computers and wanting to play on those. So yeah.
Okay, thank you once again. So I propose that the panel has reviewed and is satisfied with the V4C activities and meetings undertaken within the reporting period, and supports the ongoing work by officers to engage with our young people and to improve the attendance at V4C meetings and events. Can I ask you to raise your hands if you're in agreement? Thank you very much. That is agreed. Thank you once again, Ben. So we now move on to agenda item 11, which is the Corporate Parenting Panel Work Programme. This item on pages 145 to 150 of the agenda pack enables the panel to comment on the content of its own work programme. The report will be presented by Tracy Johnson, Senior Scrutiny Officer. The Corporate Parenting Panel is invited to review and approve the work programme and highlight any additional activity which may be included for consideration in the work programme. Tracy.
Thank you, Chairman. I have no amendments to report to the work programme. The next meeting is on the 18th of January 2024. And the items on the agenda are the Children in Care performance measures for quarter 2, the Children in Care annual report for 2022-2023, and the Lincolnshire Leaving Care Service, a 6-monthly update from Bernardo's. Welcome any suggestions for the future work programme. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on that? Okay, I think at the next meeting we might have some guests. I think there's 2 councillors coming from SKDC to see how we perform and get involved, which is great, and that's come directly out of the presentations that Andy and I've been doing to district councils. So this concludes the discussion. I propose that we approve the work programme as detailed on page 145 to 150 of the agenda pack. Can I ask you to raise your hands if you are in agreement? Thank you, that is agreed. So we now move on to item 12, which is information only, which is actually item 13 as well. So the private fostering statement of purpose 2022-23, this item on pages 151 to 156 of the agenda pack sets out the private fostering statement of purpose for 22-23 and is for information purposes only. Before we end the meeting, I'm told that a regular attendee, Elizabeth, is no longer going to be with us. Is that correct? Going to retire? Elizabeth's been coming as a representative for the Lincolnshire Community Health Services. I don't know how long for. She probably doesn't want to tell us how long for. But she's been doing it a lot longer than I've been here, and I just wanted to say thank you very much for your contribution, thank your attendance, and wish you very well in your retirement.
Thank you. I'd just like to say I've always enjoyed coming to these meetings, and I would like, quite happy for it to be recorded, that Lincolnshire children and young people are brilliant, those in care are brilliant, the foster carers and residential workers in the residential homes and all of the staff that work for LCC do a fantastic job, and I really take my hat off to them. It's been really lovely working with, I think the partnership working is brilliant, and I've really enjoyed that.
Thank you once again. Just one more thing from me. It's not on the agenda or anything before we end. Andy Morris and I have been looking at how we work as a corporate parenting panel for probably over a year now, talking about different aspects. We would very much like to get some of the younger people involved, and I know Tara's now coming on board and helping. I've got a meeting Friday, I think, looking at it, all sorts of suggestions from, is it right to be in here? Should we be in another room? Should it be recorded? How can we get the children involved? Do we want to get the children and young people involved? Just going over it. So if anybody's got any thoughts, whatever they are, good, bad or indifferent, ping them across to me one mail or give me a call. That would be super. Councillor Matthews, yes.
Sorry, I wonder if you could just repeat that bit using different words. Are we talking about changing the sort of context and nature of these meetings? Because I've sometimes felt they're far too impersonal and formal for the subject that we're talking about. And I think that's what you're saying, but I wonder if you just repeat it so I can...
I obviously got it right. That is what I was trying to say, that I would like to see them more inclusive. And I would like to see some of the young people here. That's probably going to mean that we need to do two separate styles of meeting. I don't know. And there's nothing decided. It's just starting. When we've got things that we have to do, we have no choice, statutory things we have to do. But if we can have meetings sometimes in the holidays and get the younger people here, then I think that can only be a positive thing. And yes, it is about getting it more inclusive and less formal. And I know this chamber makes it a little bit more formal. It works in some ways, but again, we've got to look into that. Councillor Clark, did you want to say anything?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just want to, really want to reiterate what a colleague has said and yourself, that this chamber can be very formal. But for this particular subject, and if you're wanting to involve younger people, it's interesting to look at the formality of it and how it operates. Obviously, strategy, policy, all this, that and the other. But this particular subject, it would be much nicer to be more informal, in a more informal setting where people can be relaxed and comfortable and talk about the subject overall. I think so. That's a brilliant idea. I'd really welcome that. Thank you.
There was a couple of discussions around the meeting, around being in here, and it was thought that actually some of the young people might like being in here. We don't know. The only thing, or the one thing that Andy and I did agree on, not that we were arguing or anything, but the one thing we had to put in place was probably pizza at the end of the meeting. But if anybody's got any thoughts, I'm open to them. I'm not precious. Good, bad or indifferent would be great. Yes, Councillor Kelly.
Yeah, I think they should be asked whether they'd like a taste of coming into the chamber, and we could have a flexible arrangement. I think that'd be a good idea.
That's great. So, Councillor Matthews.
Good discussion, Chair. Thank you very much. A good thing to air. I think, as in any family, because these are our kids we're talking about, there may be some notion that some of them, we just don't want to bother with those. On age, they're just perhaps too young to be cognizant of their place in the scheme of things. But certainly as young children grow older, you probably do sit around the table in a conventional family and you do start to talk about things. Why should you go to school? What should So I wonder if we want to invite, perhaps have some of the children at the upper end of the range. So it's not an away day event, but it actually is a genuine engagement and discussion with them about their things. And I also think some of the meeting that we have, they don't need to attend, because it is actually quite formal, because it is scrutiny of the way we go about our business. But I think it would be nice to have an agenda focused on those young people. So I'd like to see a change in the nature of the agenda more than the change in the venue. And I'd like it to probably be age relevant. So yes, of course, it would be good to bring all the children here and show this is the county council, as they might go to the Houses of Parliament, or they might go to, Longleat Castle or something. But I think actually for the purpose of this discussion, we really want to be engaging with the young people who are cognizant of their understanding of the place in the world and want to have a voice and speak to it. That's all. So it doesn't just become an away day for children.
Councillor Whittington.
I know where Councillor Matthews is coming from, but maybe we need to do an event for the younger ones as well, probably even less formal than that, because I'm currently Mayor of Grantham, and about 2 weeks ago I had a whole lot of the Grantham Evas come into the Mayor's Parlour. They're all between 6 and 8, but even at that age, they are starting to ask questions about things, and what's that? What does the Mayor do? What's this? What's that? So at that age, they are starting. Obviously, there were some older scouts with them who were, working with them. It's a question, I think, of how you, when you do an event, how you pitch the event, I think. And after Christmas, I got the delights of the squirrels, who apparently are 4 to 6. So that's going to be an interesting experience for me.
Okay, that went on a bit longer than I expected. But, oh, sorry, yes, Sarah. Oh, super, even better.
Yeah, no,
Don't apologise, please.
I was just going to add, can we think about the timing of the meeting as well? Because obviously we've heard our young people's voice that they don't like to be brought out of education, and we're working really hard to promote attendance and engagement in employment, education and training. So holiday times would be a vote for me, please.
Yep, that is great. So thank you, everybody. But as I say, if you've got any thoughts, ping them to me, or I know Tara's been involved, or Andy Morris. That would be great. So back into formal. That now concludes the business of the meeting. Thank you, everybody, for attending and your input.